Hello? There are some very important incentives that we can give without getting into their micromanagement to the power industry, to the oil and gas industry, and to the automotive industry to begin to deal adequately and sensibly with this new set of incentives that faces.
Mr. Woolsey, you pointed out very clearly the problems that are inherent with our tremendous dependency upon oil. Health-wise, you mentioned global warming, and you also pointed out the need for some very, very real changes in our sources of energy, renewable energy. My question is about the leadership in Washington. The last 8 years, very clearly, President Bush and his staff have even denied the existence of global warming, have refused to cooperate with other countries that are doing something about it, Kyoto Principle or whatever. They certainly have not encouraged, in many ways they've done nothing to really encourage renewable sources of energy. My question is, how do you account for that in view of the things you pointed out that are so clear today?
Well, I think President Bush in his State of the Union of January of 2006, 2.5 years ago, struck a new direction. He talked about our addiction to oil. Shortly thereafter, he appointed a very fine man, Andy Karsner, as the head of the renewable energy work at the Department of Energy. The Bush administration in its last couple of years has taken, I would call it, some positive directions on this issue. I hold no brief at all for their first 5 years. I think the Bush administration did not pick up the opportunity that it had after 9/11 to get the country together to move collectively in a positive direction. President Bush told us to shop. That was the wrong incentive, especially for those who shopped for houses more expensive than their paycheck would warrant with a deceptively characterized loan put in front of them. But shopping was not really the answer. The answer should have been, we need to do a lot of things together, and one thing would be to move away from our oil dependence, and that was not done. But the president has set a better tone, I think, in the last couple of years, and I think it's important that both of the major candidates for president are in favor of cap and trade and moving us toward clean coal, renewables, energy efficiency, and in John McCain's case, I think wisely also, utilization of nuclear power, in order to move toward cleaner electricity, and both are in favor of moving us away from oil dependence. The main difference between them is McCain is more favorable toward the interim drilling on the Outer Continental Shelf. But even though I'm advising John McCain, he's an old friend and I admire him greatly and I very much hope he's elected president, I got to tell you that when my friend Jason Gramey, who heads up much of the energy work for Obama, and I debated one another at the National Press Club some weeks ago, we kept finding so many things we agreed on, the press got mad at us because they said, you're not fighting, and what's fun if you're not fighting? So I think that as we move into a new administration here, we have an opportunity to take new directions with respect to energy. The main difference, I just add, I think, between Senator McCain and Senator Obama on the overall energy policies is what you might expect from Republicans versus Democrats and conservatives versus liberals. So Senator Obama is more in favor of national central management of individual programs. John McCain is more in favor, as I made my remarks here, in that spirit, of using the federal government to break up the trust of oil's control to generally incentivize small business and industry to create inventive alternatives. But we're headed in a new direction with respect to renewables and moving away from oil, and I think I wish that, like you, I wish that had begun sometime before.
Mr. Woolsey, how do you incentivize average people to, number one, drive less, and number two, go to more energy-efficient transportation methods. About 6 months ago, gasoline was close to $4 a gallon. Today, it's $2.60 or so. So there's a big difference now. Why not keep it at $4? Use the difference, number one, to increase government revenues. Number two, do exactly what you say to reduce the use of incentives to use of oil. Number three, protect the environment. And as Thomas Friedman said, why not put a $3 a gallon tax on gasoline to really provide an incentive?
It is in fact the case, I think, and what Tom's writings about this and your question both reflect is an accurate picture of the history. What is in fact the case is that as we had the oil crises of the 70s, and we decided at the end of the 70s we had the answer, the federal government picked it, Synfuels, and so it set up the Synfuels Corporation to produce extremely expensive fuel because everybody thought oil was going to stay up at those late 70s, early 80s peaks. Then in 1985, the Saudis turn on the pumps and their reserve capacity, drop the price of oil to $5 a barrel, and the Synfuels Corporation goes bankrupt. People got kind of interested in the 1990s in various types of alternative liquid fuels, and partially as a result of the Asian recession, but other reasons too. Oil ends up going down to $10 a barrel in 1999 or so, and most of the new departures go away. Then the new Bush administration decides, together with the governor of California, that their solution is going to be put the family car on the hydrogen highway. And much of the R&D in the federal government got oriented away from things like hybrids and so forth toward the hydrogen highway. Well, there are important uses for fuel cells and for hydrogen, a lot of them, maybe one or two having to do with transportation. But if you fuel the family car on hydrogen, you have to have a huge infrastructure around the country at filling stations of producing hydrogen either from natural gas or from electrolysis of water, storing the explosive hydrogen, getting it into hundreds of billions of dollars of infrastructure costs. I would say the same thing, frankly, would likely be true of the Boone-Pickens idea of moving decisively toward natural gas. It's simpler than hydrogen, and we already have a distribution system, but you'd have to put it into a lot of filling stations if you're going to use it for the family car. If you're going to fuel buses or something that are centrally fueled from natural gas, great. But these infrastructure costs that the government has ignored and then gotten caught by have had us crash several times in trying to come up with alternatives to oil, especially when the Saudis sit there and watch and turn the pumps on and drive the price down when they feel like they need to. What makes that all different today? And the reason why I don't think we need a gasoline tax, or we don't need to stay at $4 a gallon for gasoline, is electricity. If we had time-of-day pricing at residences for electricity in Maryland, where I live, instead of driving on 2 cents a mile, I could be driving on a penny a mile. Most businesses in the U.S., large number of them, have time-of-day pricing. Electricity's cheaper at night when there's so much excess capacity. There's no way the Saudis can drive the price of oil down far enough to compete with penny a mile electricity. They just can't do it. They'd be talking about having oil prices be $2 or $3, $4 a barrel or something.